Okay, so let's try to complete this chapter that we started yesterday. Remember yesterday we were talking about the Hebrew. Then los hebreos fueron conocidos como los Israelites y después se les conocieron como los Jewish o los judíos, ¿ok? Y después acuérdense que apareció un rey que los unió. El primer rey fue Saúl, el primer rey que unió a los israelitas. Después vino el rey David. Y finalmente tenemos a el rey Salomón, que dice que era muy sabio, un rey muy sabio. Así que vamos y terminamos, y creo que llegamos allí. Así que vamos a continuar desde allí. Vamos a ver dónde es que está PowerPoint. Creo que es aquí. Ajá, sí, aquí está. The King Solomon, el rey Salomón, el que era muy sabio, le pidió a Dios que él fuese muy sabio. Dice, David's son, que era el hijo de David, David's son, Solomon, took the throne in the year about 965 BC. Like his father, Solomon was strong king. Under Solomon's monarchy, Israel was organized into 12 districts. Convirtieron en 12 distritos. Each district was ruled by a governor. Not only did the governors enforce the king's law, but they also collect taxes and provide labor for Solomon. This allowed Solomon to make great improvement within the kingdom. También el rey Salomón creó un palacio, que es este que vemos aquí en la figura. Dice, Solomon expanded the kingdom and made nearby kingdoms, including Egypt and Phoenicians, his allies. Trade with these allies made Israel very rich. With these riches, Solomon built a great temple to God. Creó un gran templo para ellos. ¿A dónde? En Jerusalén. This temple became the center of the Israelites' religious life and a symbol of their faith. Símbolo de su fe. Aquí vemos una línea del tiempo donde nos dice desde que salió Abraham, acuérdense que Abraham salió de Mesopotamia para crear una gran nación, ¿a dónde? En Canaán. Después vemos a Moisés, sacó a los israelitas, el éxodo. Después viene a Saúl, que fue el rey de los israelitas. Después viene David, que ganó a Goliat, el segundo de los reyes de los israelitas. El que sigue, David, son Salomón, became the king of Israel. Y después viene Salomón. Cuando Salomón muere, his kingdom is split in two kingdoms. Cuando muere Salomón, se dividen en dos. Nuevamente se divide la nación israelita. Se dividen en dos naciones. Y aquí vamos a ver cuáles son. Invader, conquer, and rule. After Solomon's death, about 955 BC, rebels broke out over who should be the king. Within a year's conflict, torn Israel apart. Separó a Israel, lo convirtió en dos partes, en esta y en esta. Dice Kingdom of Israel y luego the Kingdom of Judá. En dos, los separó en dos partes. Kingdom of el reino de Israel y el reino de Judá. Se dividió los israelitas. Israel split into kingdom called Israel and Judah. The people of Judah became known as Jewish. O sea que los de aquí eran los judíos. Se les conocía como los judíos, the Jewish. Dice, in the 530s BC, a people called the Persians conquered the Chaldeans and let the Jews return to Jerusalem. But many never took this opportunity to return home. Instead, some moved to other part of Persian Empire. Scholars call the dispersal of the Jewish of la dispuria. De aquí salieron para diferentes áreas los israelitas. Se esparcieron por todas estas áreas, los israelitas. Ok, dice, vamos a ver, ajá. Ahora los asirios. The Assyrians defeat the Israel around 722 BC. The kingdom fell apart because most of its people were dispersed, o sea que se habían ido. Judah lasted longer, but before long it was defeated by the Chaldeans, los caldeos. Después los caldeos dice, the dispersal of the Jewish, la dispersión de los judíos, the Jewish. The Chaldeans captured Jerusalem and destroyed Solomon's temple. ¿Recuerdan el templo que había construido Salomón? Lo destruyeron. They marched thousands of Jews to their capital, Babylon, to work as a slave. Lo convirtieron nuevamente, se convirtieron los israelitas en esclavos. The Jewish called this enslavement the Babylonian captivity, la captura de Babilonia. Y duró más o menos 50 años. Nuevamente son esclavos los judíos. The rest of the Jews did return home to Jerusalem. There they rebuilt Solomon's temple, which became known as the Second Temple. The Jews remained under Persian control until the 330s BC, when the Persians were conquered by invaders. Independence and conquest. Tired of foreign rule, a Jewish family called the Maccabees led a successful revolt in the year 160 BC. For around 100 years, the Jews gained rule their own kingdom. Their independence, however, did not last. In the year 663 BC, antes de Cristo, the Jews were conquered again. This by, ¿por quién? Por los romanos. Ahora llegaron los romanos a conquistar a los judíos. También en la última parte de este capítulo habla lo importante que fueron las mujeres en aquella época. Débora habla sobre una que se llamaba Débora, que era una juez muy importante en aquella época. Y también habla de la reina Esther, que también salvó a muchos judíos en aquella época. ¿Ok? Muy bien. Now let's watch the video that I have for you in order to conclude this chapter, guys. Okay? Let's watch only two. This one talks about the Solomon wisdom, how wisdom was Solomon. And this one talks about the kingdom of Israel when we was divided. Okay? So let's watch this one.
King Solomon. Solomon became the king of Israel. He loved God. He asked God to help him be a good king. God was happy Solomon wanted to be righteous. God wanted to bless Solomon. God asked Solomon what blessing he would like. Solomon wanted to be wise. God was glad Solomon chose to be wise. He told Solomon to obey his commandments. Then Solomon would be wise. Solomon became the wisest man on earth. People came from other lands to ask him questions. He gave them wise answers. Kings and queens came to see him. They brought him beautiful gifts. The Israelites came to King Solomon when they needed help. One day, two women came to him with a baby boy. The women said they lived in the same house. They each had a baby, but one of the babies died. Now, both women wanted the baby that was alive. Each mother said he was her baby. They wanted King Solomon to tell them who could keep the baby. Solomon wanted to find out which woman was the baby's mother. He had a wise plan. He asked for a sword. He told a servant to cut the baby in half. He would give half of the baby to each woman. Solomon would not really let the baby be cut in half. He wanted to see what the women would do. He knew the baby's mother would not let her son be hurt. One mother told Solomon not to cut the baby in half. She did not want the baby to be hurt. She loved the baby. She said the other woman could have him. The other woman told Solomon to cut the baby in half. Then Solomon knew who should keep the baby. The real mother did not want the baby to be hurt. Solomon gave the baby to her. Soon, all the Israelites heard what had happened, they knew God had made Solomon wise.
Muy bien. Vamos a ver the second one.
The kingdom of Israel divides. 1 Kings 11:26 through 12:33. After King David died, his son Solomon became king of Israel. Solomon asked God for wisdom, and God granted his request by making him the wisest man in the world. God also blessed Solomon with much wealth. He was not only the wisest man in the world, he was also the richest. Solomon didn't follow after God all the days of his life. As he grew older, he stopped loving and serving God and served idols instead. God was not happy with Solomon. Soon Solomon would learn the consequences of his disobedience to God. When Solomon's builders were adding an addition to Jerusalem and repairing the city's walls, Solomon noticed that Jeroboam was a skilled worker. So Solomon made Jeroboam a leader over some workers. But working for Solomon was hard. Jeroboam began to resist Solomon and even became his enemy. God had chosen Jeroboam to be a ruler of Israel after Solomon died. Jeroboam would find this out in an interesting way. One day, the prophet Ahijah met Jeroboam on the road out of Jerusalem. Ahijah took Jeroboam's coat and tore it into 12 pieces. Then he said to Jeroboam, "Take 10 pieces of this coat, for God has said he will tear the kingdom away from Solomon and will give you 10 tribes to rule. Solomon's son Rehoboam will rule over only 2 tribes because Solomon has brought idol worship into the land. Solomon has not continued to obey God like his father David did." God challenged Jeroboam to live right and obey God's commands. If Jeroboam obeyed God, God would be with him and would give his family the throne in Israel for generations to come. When Solomon found out about God's message to Jeroboam, he tried to kill Jeroboam. Jeroboam fled to Egypt. He returned to Israel only after he heard Solomon was dead. Meanwhile, the Israelites crowned Solomon's son Rehoboam. Jeroboam and the people came to Rehoboam and said, "Your father Solomon made us work very hard. Please make it easier for us. If you do, we will serve you." The people hoped Rehoboam would lighten their heavy workload. Rehoboam answered, "Come back and..."
Okay, let's stop right here because I don't want to forget the whole story, because I want you to play a game. Okay, now I want that everybody please enter to Neo's platform and click on this link over here that is at the bottom of this section, Semana 5 del 19 al 23 de octubre, the early Hebrews. Todos entren a la plataforma de Neo y esperen que les voy a dar un código para jugar un juego, ¿ya? Todos entren a la plataforma, por favor. Everybody enter to the platform, please. Everybody enter to the platform. I'm gonna provide you a code in order for you to enter to this game. Okay, now over here, this is the code that you need to enter as soon as you enter in the platform. Okay, clicken en el link, click on that link at the bottom and type this code 246752, 246752, 246752. Vamos chicos, lo estoy esperando, vamos. Ok, vamos chicos, vamos. Rápido chicos para hacer este juego. Ya está Adriel, Isabela, está Alison Díaz, está ya está Ospina. Vamos los demás chicos, el código 246752. 246752. Bien, ya está Zuli, Drapes, Hannah, Melissa, Zen. Vamos rápido chicos, vamos, falta más. Vamos, los demás chicos, rápido, estamos esperándolo. Hurry up, hurry up. Vamos chicos. Eso, vamos, rápido, rápido, rápido. Nos va el tiempo para comenzar este juego. Vamos chicos. 5 más, vamos, entren, rápido chicos. Ajá, vamos. Rápido chicos, vamos a empezar esto rápido. Faltan 4 estudiantes por lo menos, 4 ya para comenzar este juego chicos. Vamos rápido. El código 246752, 246752. Vamos chicos, uno más, que entre uno más. Ok, Brian, bien Brian. Ok, vamos a comenzar pues ya, no podemos esperar tanto tiempo, son las 10:39, tenemos 6 minutos para jugar este juego. Los otros pueden entrar, 246752, pero vamos a empezar ya, ok, pueden entrar. Ok, vamos a ver quién sabe, quién aprendió mucho sobre este tema, vamos. Ajá, Yesuli va ganando. No viene Melissa detrás de Yesuli. ¿Y Ospina se quedó? ¿Qué pasó, Ospina? ¿Te estás quedando?
No, es que me pareció que estaba cuarto y yo estaba de primero. O sea,
Bueno, sí tú estabas, pero mira, lo que pasa es que estás cometiendo muchos errores. Mira la línea que está en rojo. Ah, subió Etienne, está Carlito Etienne arriba. Ah, subió Yesuli otra vez. Esa senta es tercero, Ospina está en cuarto ahora. Subió Carlito. Uy, Hanna quedó en tercero. Uy, Alison Díaz está en tercero. Ya subí de segundo. Ok, chicos, son las 10:47. Ya vamos a parar ahí, ya ganó Etienne. Felicidades, Etienne. Nos vemos la otra semana, chicos. Pórtense bien. Vayan a su próxima clase.